I told my son I was driving to Halifax for a cardiology appointment. That was a lie. Instead, I parked my truck behind Murray's barn, half a kilometer from my own property, and opened the camera app on my phone. What I saw on that screen at 11:45 in the morning broke something inside me that I do not think will ever fully heal. 69 years old and still running a boat repair yard in Lunenburg, Nova Scotia. That is who I am. That is who I have been since I took over the business from my father in 1982. Gordy's Marine Services. We fix hulls, rebuild engines, restore old schooners that tourists like to photograph along the waterfront. It is not glamorous work, but it is honest, and it has given me a good life. A house on the hill overlooking the harbor. A cottage up near Mahone Bay. A commercial property on Montague Street where the shop sits. Altogether, the kind of estate a man builds over 40 years of waking up at 5 in the morning and not stopping until his hands ache. That Wednesday in October, I walked into my office at the back of the shop and noticed something that made me stop in the doorway. My desk chair was pulled out at a different angle. I always push it flush against the desk when I leave. Always. It is a habit my wife Doreen drilled into me over 33 years of marriage before the stroke took her. She hated a messy room. So I pushed the chair in every single night. But there it was, turned slightly to the left, as if someone had sat in it and forgotten to straighten it. I looked around. The filing cabinet in the corner was closed, but the key was in the lock. I never leave the key in the lock. I keep it on a hook behind the calendar on the wall. I walked over and opened the top drawer. My property files were shuffled. The deed for the Montague Street building, which I always keep in front, was now behind the cottage paperwork. The house deed was at the very back. I sat down on the old wooden stool by the workbench and tried to think clearly. Only 2 other people had keys to the office. My son, Craig, who was 41, and his wife, Vanessa, who was 38. Craig worked in insurance in Halifax. Vanessa was a mortgage broker. They lived in a large house in Bedford, the kind with granite countertops and heated floors, the kind that costs more to maintain than most people earn in a year. I did not want to think what I was thinking. I pulled out the bottom drawer. This is where I keep my will, my insurance policies, and the ownership papers for the business. The will was there, but it had been refolded. I could tell because I always fold it with the signature page on the inside. Now the signature page was facing out. Someone had opened it, read it, and put it back in a hurry. My chest tightened. Not my heart. Something worse. The feeling you get when trust begins to crack. I thought back to Thanksgiving dinner 3 weeks earlier. Craig and Vanessa had driven down from Halifax with their 2 kids. We ate turkey in my dining room, the same room where Doreen used to set the table with her good china. After the kids went to watch television, Craig leaned back in his chair and brought up a subject that had no business at a holiday table. "Dad, have you thought about what happens with the business when you retire?" I looked at him over my coffee. "I am not retiring." Vanessa smiled, that careful smile she uses when she wants something. "Of course not. But planning ahead is smart. You have a lot of assets. The shop, the house, the cottage. If something happened to you suddenly, it would be complicated for everyone." Complicated for everyone or convenient for you? I did not say that out loud. I said, I have a will. Everything is taken care of. Craig nodded slowly. Right. But wills can be contested. And probate takes forever. Have you thought about transferring some things now? While you are still healthy? I am healthy. He held up his hands. I know. I am just saying. It is worth thinking about. We changed the subject. But Vanessa kept glancing at Craig across the table the rest of the evening, little looks that said more than words. Now, standing in my rifled office with the November wind rattling the windows, those looks came back to me. The dinner conversation came back. The chair out of place came back. Everything clicked together in a pattern I did not want to see. The next morning, I drove up the hill to Murray's place. Murray Chicken was 72, a retired Coast Guard officer who had lived next door to me for 25 years. He was the kind of man who noticed things because 40 years of scanning open water for trouble had trained his eyes to catch what did not belong. He was out front splitting firewood when I pulled in. He set down the axe and looked at me. "You look like a man with a problem. Murray, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be straight with me." "When am I not?" "Have you seen Craig or Vanessa at my place when I am not home?" He wiped his hands on his flannel shirt and looked out at the harbor for a long moment. "Come inside." We sat at his kitchen table. He poured 2 mugs of tea from the pot on the stove and pushed one across to me. "I was not going to say anything," he began, "because I was not sure what to make of it. But yes. Your son and his wife have been coming by. I have seen them 4 times in the last 3 weeks. Always on weekdays, always when your truck is gone. Twice they brought someone else. A woman. Short hair, dark coat, carried a briefcase. Drove a white Audi with a Halifax plate." "A woman with a briefcase?" "Looked like a lawyer to me. Or a notary. Something official. They would go inside for an hour, sometimes longer. Come out talking quietly. Your son always checked the road before they left, like he was making sure nobody saw them." My hands tightened around the mug. "Did you get the plate number?" Murray reached into the drawer behind him and pulled out a scrap of paper. Wrote it down the second time. "Old habits." I took the paper and stared at it. 6 characters that might confirm the worst suspicion of my life. "Gordy, whatever is going on, do not go in blind. People do desperate things when money is involved. Especially family." I drove back to the shop and tried to work, but I could not concentrate. My foreman, Brenda Chicken, came by the office around noon. Brenda had been with me for 18 years. She could rebuild a diesel engine blindfolded, and she could read my moods better than anyone alive. "Something is wrong," she said. "And do not tell me you are fine. Just family stuff." She looked at me for a moment, then nodded. "You know where I am if you need me." That afternoon, I drove to the electronics store in Bridgewater and bought a wireless camera the size of a golf ball. The young man at the counter showed me how to connect it to my phone, how to set it to record when it detected motion, how to store the footage online. I paid cash. Back home, I spent 20 minutes finding the right spot. I settled on the bookshelf behind the framed photograph of Doreen and me on our wedding day, 1986. The lens fit perfectly between the frame and a carved wooden seagull my father had made. From that position, it had a clear view of my entire office, the desk, the filing cabinet, the door. Then I picked up my phone and called Craig. "Hey, Dad. What is going on? Just wanted to let you know I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow in Halifax. Cardiology. They want to run some tests on my heart." There was a pause. "Is everything all right?" "Routine. You know how it is at my age. They want to check everything. I will probably be gone most of the day. Do you want me to meet you there?" No. You have work." "I will be fine." "Okay. Call me after." I hung up and stood in the silence of my kitchen. Through the window, I could see the harbor, the old wharves, the masts of sailboats swaying in the October wind. I had looked at this view every morning for 35 years. It had never felt so heavy. The next morning, I left at 8:30. I drove toward Halifax on the 103, but after 20 minutes I turned around and took the back road to Murray's place. I parked behind his barn where my truck could not be seen from the main road. Murray brought me a thermos of coffee and a folding chair. "You want company?" "No. I need to do this alone." He put his hand on my shoulder, squeezed once, and went back inside. I sat in the cab of my truck with my phone in my hand and waited. At 11:15, a silver SUV came down the hill and turned into my driveway. Craig got out of the driver's side. Vanessa got out of the passenger side. From the back seat, a woman stepped out. Short dark hair. Charcoal coat. Leather briefcase. She matched Murray's description exactly. They walked to the front door. Vanessa used her key. They went inside. I opened the camera app. The image was sharp. They were in my office. Craig went straight to the filing cabinet and pulled out the top drawer. He removed the property deeds and laid them across my desk. Vanessa stood beside him. The woman in the coat opened her briefcase and took out a stack of papers. "I have the transfer documents ready," the woman said. "The house, the cottage, the commercial property, and the business. We just need his signature on each one." Craig picked up the deed for the Montague Street shop. He held it like he was weighing it. "This alone is worth $1.2 million. The house is at least $800. The cottage, another $450. And the business, if we sell the client list and the equipment, we are looking at close to $2 million total. So roughly $4.5 million in assets," the woman said. "Once we secure power of attorney, we can begin the transfers immediately." Power of attorney. The words hit me like a wave of cold water. Vanessa leaned against my desk. She was looking at Doreen's photograph on the shelf without any expression at all. "Dr. Chicken has agreed to do the assessment. She will certify early-stage cognitive decline. Once we file that with the court, we petition for guardianship. Craig becomes his legal decision-maker." "And then?" the woman asked. "Then we move him to a care facility." Vanessa's voice was flat. Matter of fact. Like she was discussing a mortgage application. "There is a place in Truro. Comfortable enough. He will not complain once he adjusts. And if he does complain, well, the diagnosis says he is confused." Craig was quiet for a moment. He picked up the framed photograph of me and Doreen. Then he put it down again. He did not look at it. "This has to happen fast. Before he gets suspicious." "It will," the woman said. "Dr. Chicken files the assessment Monday. We go to court Tuesday. By Wednesday, you will have full authority over his finances, his property, and his medical decisions." I sat in that truck behind Murray's barn and watched my son plan to erase me. To take everything I had built and lock me away in a room in Truro while they spent my money. My hands were shaking. Not from the cold. From something that has no name. Something between rage and grief. Something that lives in the space where love used to be. They stayed for another 30 minutes. They discussed timelines, distribution plans, which properties to sell first. They talked about me in the past tense, as if I were already gone. When they finally left, I sat in the truck for a long time. Murray came out after an hour. He did not ask what I had seen. He just handed me a fresh cup of tea and sat on the tailgate beside me. That night, I did not go home. I stayed at Murray's. I sat in his living room in the dark while he pretended to read in the kitchen, giving me space but staying close. I thought about Doreen. About what she would say if she could see what our son had become. I thought about Craig as a boy, running along the wharf, helping me sand a hull, falling asleep in the truck on the drive home from a job site. That boy was gone. Or maybe he had never been who I thought he was. The next morning, I called Douglas Chicken, my lawyer. Douglas had handled all my business contracts, my property purchases, every legal matter for the past 20 years. He was the one person besides Murray I trusted completely. "Gordy, what is wrong? I need to see you today." "It cannot wait. Come to my office at 10. I drove to his office in Lunenburg and showed him the video. He watched it twice. The second time, his jaw tightened and he took off his glasses and set them on the desk. "This is criminal," he said. "Conspiracy to commit fraud, elder abuse, and if they are planning a false medical assessment, that is a whole other level. What do I do? First, we protect your assets today. We are going to create an irrevocable trust. Everything goes in. The house, the cottage, the shop, the business, all of it. You remain the beneficiary and you maintain control during your lifetime, but the assets are legally in the trust. Even if Craig gets guardianship over you personally, he cannot touch what is in the trust. It is a separate legal entity. Can we do it that fast? I will call in every favor I have. By end of day. What about Craig? What about what they are planning? Douglas leaned forward. That depends on you. We can go to the police right now with this video. They have enough to arrest all three of them. The lawyer. The doctor, if she is involved. Arrest my son. He looked at me steadily. Gordy, what he is doing is not the behavior of a son. It is the behavior of a criminal. And if we let them execute their plan, if they actually file that false assessment and go to court with fraudulent documents, the charges will be far more serious and far harder for them to defend. You are saying we should wait. I am saying that right now. They could argue they were just exploring options. Brainstorming. But if they file that assessment, if they stand before a judge and present forged medical evidence, that is the point of no return. That is when we have them. I stared at the harbor through his office window. How long? Based on what they said, they are filing Monday. Court on Tuesday. We intercept Tuesday morning. And until then? You act normal. You do not confront them. You do not let them see anything different in your behavior. You let them believe their plan is working. I do not know if I can look at him and pretend. You can. Because the alternative is worse. That weekend was the longest of my life. Craig called on Saturday to ask about my cardiology appointment. I told him the doctor said my heart was fine. He sounded disappointed, though he tried to hide it. That is great, Dad. Really great. We should celebrate. Why don't Vanessa and I come down next weekend? Sure. That would be nice. I hung up and sat on Murray's porch watching the tide go out. Murray brought me a plate of fish cakes his sister had dropped off. Eat something, he said. I am not hungry. I did not ask if you were hungry. I said eat something. I ate. Not because I wanted to, but because Murray was the kind of man you did not argue with when he set a plate in front of you. On Monday, I kept the camera running. At 10 in the morning, Craig and Vanessa returned to my house. This time they had a different woman with them, someone I had never seen. She was in her 50s, wearing a lab coat under a winter jacket. Dr. Foley? Craig said to her as they entered my office. Yes. I have the assessment form here. I just need to finalize a few details. She sat at my desk and opened a folder. Based on the information you have provided, I am comfortable certifying mild cognitive impairment with early indicators of progressive decline. This is consistent with early-stage dementia. Vanessa handed her a pen. And this will hold up? It is a medical opinion. The court accepts medical opinions from licensed practitioners. As long as no one challenges it with a competing assessment, it will stand. No one will challenge it, Craig said. He does not even know this is happening. Dr. Foley signed the form. Craig shook her hand. Vanessa walked her to the door. After the doctor left, Craig and Vanessa stood in my office alone. Through the camera, I watched Vanessa pick up the wooden seagull my father had carved. She turned it over in her hands like she was appraising it. What about this stuff? She asked. The sentimental things. Donate it. Throw it out. I do not care. Something tore inside me when she said that. That seagull had been on my father's desk for 40 years before it came to mine. He carved it from a piece of driftwood he found on Blue Rocks Beach the summer before he died. And she wanted to throw it out. I called Douglas from Murray's kitchen. They filed the assessment. The doctor signed it. Good. I already spoke with the RCMP. They will have officers at the courthouse tomorrow morning. I also retained a geriatric psychiatrist, Dr. Singh from Dalhousie. She examined you last week, if you recall, as a favor to me. I remembered. Douglas had asked me to see her as a precaution. She had given me a full cognitive evaluation and declared me fully competent. Her report is ready, Douglas continued. It directly contradicts what Dr. Foley filed. When we present both in court, the fraud will be obvious. That night, I lay in Murray's guest bed and stared at the ceiling. I thought about the day Craig was born. The first time I held him, this tiny red-faced creature screaming in my arms. Doreen laughing through her exhaustion. The three of us going home together in my old Ford, driving slow through Lunenburg because I was terrified of every bump in the road. That man in my office, planning to lock me away for money, I could not connect him to that baby. They were two different people. Somewhere between then and now, something had gone wrong, and I did not know if it was something I did or something I failed to do. Tuesday morning. I arrived at the courthouse in Bridgewater at 8:45. Douglas was waiting at the entrance with two RCMP officers and Dr. Singh. "Are you ready?" Douglas asked. "No." That is the honest answer. "Let us go." We went inside. The courtroom was on the main floor. Through the glass panel in the door, I could see Craig and Vanessa sitting at the front table. Their lawyer was beside them. Dr. Foley was seated in the gallery, looking nervous. Douglas put his hand on my arm. "We wait. Let them present their case first. Then we walk in." I watched through the glass as the hearing began. The judge was a man in his 60s with a calm, measured voice. Craig's lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, we are here to petition for emergency guardianship over Gordon Chicken, age 69. Mr. Chicken has been exhibiting signs of cognitive decline over the past several months. We have a medical assessment from Dr. Foley confirming early-stage dementia. Given his inability to manage his significant assets and business operations, we request that his son Craig Chicken be appointed as his legal guardian with full authority over his financial and medical affairs." The judge reviewed the file. "Is Mr. Chicken present?" "No, Your Honor. He was not notified of this hearing. Given his mental state, we felt it was in his best interest to proceed without causing him undue distress." Douglas pushed open the courtroom door. I walked in behind him. Dr. Singh followed. The two RCMP officers came last. "Your Honor," Douglas said. "My name is Douglas Chicken, counsel for Gordon Chicken. Mr. Chicken is present, fully competent, and very much aware of what is being attempted here today." Craig turned around. The color drained from his face. Vanessa grabbed his arm. Their lawyer froze mid-breath. I walked to the front of the courtroom. I looked at my son. He could not hold my gaze. "Your Honor," Douglas continued, "I am submitting evidence that this petition is fraudulent. The medical assessment from Dr. Foley was not based on any in-person examination of my client. Mr. Chicken has never met Dr. Foley. Furthermore, I am presenting a competing cognitive evaluation conducted by Dr. Amrita Singh, a board-certified geriatric psychiatrist at Dalhousie University Medical Center. Dr. Singh examined Mr. Chicken 5 days ago and found him fully competent, with no signs of cognitive impairment. He handed the judge both reports, along with a USB drive. Additionally, Your Honor, we have video evidence. Mr. Chicken installed a security camera in his home office after discovering that his personal documents had been tampered with. The footage shows the petitioners, Craig and Vanessa Chicken, along with their legal counsel and Dr. Foley, conspiring to fabricate a dementia diagnosis, forge transfer documents, and seize Mr. Chicken's assets through fraudulent guardianship. The judge inserted the USB drive into the courtroom computer. He watched in silence for several minutes. The only sound was Vanessa's breathing, which had become shallow and fast. "Dr. Foley," the judge said without looking up. "Did you examine Mr. Chicken in person?" "I reviewed records that were provided to me and formed a professional opinion based on. Did you examine him in person?" "Yes or no?" "No, Your Honor." "So you certified a dementia diagnosis for a patient you have never met, never spoken to, and never examined. Dr. Foley did not answer. The judge turned to Craig's lawyer. And you submitted this assessment to this court knowing it was not based on a direct examination? Your Honor, I relied on the representations of my clients. I was assured that, you are an officer of this court. Your duty is to verify the evidence you present, not parrot what your clients tell you. The judge sat back and looked at Craig and Vanessa for a long time. What I have seen on this video is deeply disturbing. This is not a family disagreement about estate planning. This is a coordinated scheme to defraud a competent individual of his autonomy and his life's work. Craig and Vanessa Chicken, you are looking at charges of fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, elder abuse, and attempting to pervert the course of justice. Dr. Foley, you have committed perjury and professional misconduct. He turned to the RCMP officers. Please proceed. The first officer stepped forward. Craig Chicken, Vanessa Chicken, you are under arrest. You have the right to retain and instruct counsel without delay. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say may be used as evidence. I watched them put handcuffs on my son. His wrists, the same wrists I used to hold when I taught him to walk along the wharf, the same hands I wrapped in bandages when he cut himself on a rusty nail at the shop. Those hands were behind his back now, clasped in steel. Vanessa was crying. She kept saying this is a misunderstanding, over and over, as if repetition could make it true. Craig looked at me as the officer let him past. Dad. Please. You do not have to do this. I did not answer right away. I looked at him and tried to find the boy I raised. The boy who loved the ocean. The boy who used to sit on the end of a pier and count the fishing boats coming in. I could not find him. You did this, I said. Not me. You. They took him out. Vanessa followed, still crying. Dr. Foley was escorted out separately, her face gray. The lawyer trailed behind, already on his phone. The courtroom was quiet. The judge looked at me. Mr. Chicken, I am sorry this happened to you. The petition is denied. Your assets, your business, and your autonomy are fully intact. Thank you, Your Honor. I walked out of the courthouse with Douglas beside me. The sun was low over the trees. November light, thin and pale. The parking lot smelled like wet leaves. How are you? Douglas asked. I do not know. That is fair. He drove me back to Murray's. I sat on the porch and watched the harbor until the sun went down. Murray came out at some point with 2 glasses of rum. He did not say anything. He just sat there. That was enough. 4 months later, the trial ended. Craig was sentenced to 3.5 years for fraud and conspiracy. Vanessa received 4 years because the investigation revealed she had been the one to recruit Dr. Foley and coordinate the entire scheme. She had found the doctor through a contact at her brokerage firm. She had paid her $15,000. Dr. Foley lost her medical license and received 2 years. Craig's lawyer was disbarred and received 18 months. I sat in the gallery when the sentences were read. I did not feel satisfaction. I did not feel victory. I felt the kind of tiredness that sleep cannot fix. I moved back into my house. I cleaned the office. I put the property files back in order. I pushed the chair flush against the desk. I hung the key on the hook behind the calendar. Everything was in its place. But the house was quieter than it had ever been. Murray still came over most evenings. We would eat together, usually something simple. Soup and bread. Fish and potatoes. Sometimes we did not talk at all. We just sat and ate and listened to the wind outside. Brenda took on more responsibility at the shop. I promoted her to general manager and gave her a share of the business. She had earned it. 18 years of showing up, doing the work, never asking for anything she did not deserve. She was more family to me than the people who shared my blood. I started volunteering with Habitat for Humanity on weekends. building houses for people who needed them. There is something healing about framing a wall, about driving nails into wood, about creating something solid and useful. It reminded me why I got into this trade in the first place. Not for the money. For the making. 7 months after the sentencing, a letter arrived. Plain white envelope, no return address, but the postmark said Nova Institution for Women. I knew it was from Vanessa before I opened it. I do not know why I expected it to be from Craig instead. Maybe because I thought he owed me more. I held the envelope for 2 days before I opened it. Murray saw it sitting on my kitchen table and did not ask about it. He just looked at it, looked at me, and changed the subject. When I finally read it, this is what it said. I know I am the last person you want to hear from. I know what I did. I am not writing to excuse it or explain it away. I am writing because Craig will not. He is angry. At you, at me, at everyone except himself. He does not understand yet. Maybe he never will. I want you to know that I am the one who started it. Not Craig. He would not have done this on his own. He talked about your money, yes. He resented you for working so much, for being tough on him, for never saying you were proud of him. But he would not have crossed this line without me pushing him. I come from a family where money was everything. My parents measured love in dollars. When I married Craig, I saw your assets as our future. All right. I told myself you were old, you did not need all of it, you would not even notice. I convinced myself it was not stealing. It was just rearranging. I was wrong. It was stealing. From a man who spent his whole life building something real. In here, I have time to think. Too much time. I think about the look on your face in that courtroom. Not angry. Sad. That was worse than anger. Anger I could have handled. But sadness means you still cared. And that means I destroyed something that was still alive. I do not expect forgiveness. I do not ask for it. I just wanted you to know that at least one of us understands what we did. Take care of yourself, Gordon. Vanessa. I read it twice. Then I folded it and put it in the top drawer of my desk, next to Doreen's old reading glasses and a photograph of Craig at age 6, sitting on the bow of a boat I had just finished restoring, grinning into the sun. I did not write back. A year and a half has passed since the trial. Gordy's Marine Services is still running. Brenda manages the day-to-day operations and she's better at it than I ever was. Murray and I still eat dinner together most nights. He is 74 now and slower on his feet, but his eyes are still the sharpest on this stretch of coast. I sold the cottage in Mahone Bay. Not because I needed the money, but because I could not go there without seeing Craig as a boy, catching his first mackerel off the dock, running through the tall grass behind the property, falling asleep in the hammock with his mother's hand on his back. The memories were too tangled with what came after. But I kept the house. The one on the hill. The one I renovated with my own hands over 3 decades. The one where Doreen and I raised our son. The one where I learned that the hardest thing a man can do is not build something. It is watching someone try to take it from you and choosing to stand instead of break. Some nights, I sit in my office and look at that photograph on the shelf. Doreen and me on our wedding day. Young and certain and full of plans. I wonder what she would say about all of this. I think she would say I did the right thing. I think she would also cry. I do not have all the answers. I do not know where I went wrong with Craig, or if I went wrong at all. Maybe some people are shaped by what they lack, and no amount of giving can fill that hole. Maybe I worked too many hours and he grew up feeling like the business mattered more than he did. Maybe that is true. Maybe that is not an excuse for what he did. What I know is this. I built my life with my hands. Board by board, bolt by bolt, year by year. No one gave it to me. No one owed it to me. And when someone tried to take it, even someone I loved, I stood my ground. Not out of greed. Not out of spite. Out of respect for the work itself. For the mornings I woke up before dawn. For the winters I worked in a shop so cold my fingers went numb. For every boat I put back in the water and watched sail out of the harbor. A man's work is not just what he does. It is who he is. And if he lets someone take that away without a fight, he loses more than property. He loses himself. I learned that trust is not a gift you give once. It is something that must be earned every day. That love does not entitle anyone to what you have built. That the people closest to you can be the ones who see you least clearly. And that sometimes, the loneliest thing in the world is being right.